What's going on, guys? We have finally got to the last episode of the UFC 2018 recap series. We have hit double-digit episodes, and I'm proud to say we're getting it done. We're going to go back to finishing the weight classes in a couple more episodes in the future, and I still want to do a award review where we give some awards to Fighter of the Year and stuff like that, male, female, etc., etc. But we'll do that after this. I wanted to get this recap done just so we have that full series on the channel. We'll probably do this next year as well, where we touch on all the events. We have touched on every event, or by the end of this video, we will have touched on every event of 2018. And it just feels good to have that all done. We'll start with a fight night, and we have 2 pay-per-views to go through in December. And that's it, and that's all this series wrote. Thank you guys so much for enjoying this road with me. We will start 2019 fresh with a couple UFC videos. I have a couple planned ready to go. I'm talking about January fight cards. But we will see when we wrap this series up, when this episode drops, and we'll get into 2019 and finish off the rest of the series from 2018 on the fresh look 2019. So we're going to start. Let's just jump right into the episode. If you guys have enjoyed the series, drop a like. If you want to see more, drop a sub. Videos always like this. So let's start with UFC Fight Night. Dos Santos versus Tai Tuivasa. Now, earlier in the year, we had to talk about, I think it was in like the first or second episode, we talked about how we had an Australian hometown fight card, and this was the second one. This was the card where all of them pretty much lost. We had JDS defeating Tai in the main event. We had Shogun Rua defeating Tyson Pedro in the co-main event. We had Justin Willis beating Mark Hunt in the third fight at heavyweight. And then we had the welterweight Jake Matthews losing. This one was rough for the Aussie-born talent. And Justin Willis and Mark Hunt got into a little scuffle before the fight, and that brought a lot out of Tai Tuivasa, calling Justin Willis out to see a fight. So we'll probably see them two go at it. JDS has always been that guy on the feet, and he showed it against Tai Tuivasa. I think Tai Tuivasa needs a little more experience, obviously, in the UFC octagon. He's got a lot of wins outside of it, but the more you get outside the octagon, the better that is. JDS is a tough challenge for anybody. He's going to shoot right back into that top 5. He's going to be looking at that top 5 picture going forward. Then you have another legend in Marisa Shogun Rua. The Brazilians taking the wins here. And picking up a big win for Shogun, coming off that loss to Anthony Smith, getting back on track against Tyson Pedro. Poor Pedro couldn't pick up a win, but in 2019, it's a new year for all these guys. And then that Justin Willis one, I think, was the hardest one to swallow for the Australian-born fans. Justin Willis, that scuffle at the start with such a legend in Mark Hunt. Tai Tuivasa seemed to be very angry about it. Mark Hunt was displeased, and it was just a rough go for them in this fight night card. Just a couple losses that just they wish they could have back. You know, they wish they could probably have that card back when it comes to Aussie-born talent. Now, I have a special connection to the next event on this list, as it was my first UFC event ever live. And man, did it live up to any hype I had. Did it not disappoint at all from the start of the first fight starring at Stony Creek-born talent to all the way to the main event where it was one of the fights of ever. Let's start with way at the bottom with Elias Theodorou versus Eric Anders. I thought Anders fight-wise won, but round-wise, I'm giving it to Theodorou. I'm giving him the first and the third. I don't know how it looked on TV. All these fights I'm coming at you with from my perspective live. I didn't watch them on air. I watched them all live. So I thought Elias got the first and the third, and that's what the judges gave him too. Then we had Jessica Ai debuting at flyweight, or was this her second fight? I think it was her second fight at flyweight, picking up a win over a game. Blonde Fighter was her nickname. Jessica Ai got shot, and she wants that shot against Valentina Shevchenko for the championship. Sadly, in the next fight, we saw OAM lose to Gilbert Burns, which was a disappointing outcome for a Canadian gangster in OAM. OAM has had a not so great 2018 campaign, but man, new year, new them. He's going to go back he's going to step back in that octagon. He's going to go as hard as he has ever gone. I'm looking for big things from OAM next year. Shout out to Gilbert Burns. He put on a great fight. He won pretty unanimously. It was a decisive win. Then we saw an upset in Nina Ansaroff. She trains with Amanda Nunes. She's Amanda Nunes' girlfriend. I don't know if they're married or what about that, but she picked up a win over Claudia Gadelha, who's a massive name at strawweight. And I think Nina's going to be looking for a top 5 or even looking at the title in her next fight. I'm especially training with the greatest female fighter of all time, in my opinion, Amanda Nunes so far. I think that she has big things awaiting her in strawweight. Maybe she'll be the challenger after, what's her name, gets done with it. Andrade. Maybe she's going to be in it after Andrade, but we will see. Then we probably had the second best fight on the card. If you're not going to, you have an argument with the co-main event, but we had Thiago Santos and Jimmy Manuwa going to war. Like, this was war. Santos won, capped off a great year for him at coming up to light heavyweight, picking up a win over heavy-hitting Jimmy Manuwa in that fashion was massive. The crowd erupted. That was a great fight. Round 2, man, I'm surprised this got out of the first, man. They were teeing off on each other. And then we had the featherweight fight between Canadian Dawodu picking up a massive win over Kyle Bochniak, who was coming off his win over, his massive fight against Zabit. Hakeem is going to be looking for a big thing coming up. I believe in him. A great Canadian fighter, Canadian-born fighter. He was great to see him come out and do what he did. Then we had Gunnar Nelson with a brutal elbow and then finished it off with a rear naked choke. The fight would have been stopped even if he didn't sink in that rear naked. The elbow made Alex Oliveira gush. I love Oliveira. Oliveira was happy coming to the octagon. That guy's a legend too. That was a great fight. Loved it. Live. Awesome. Then we had the women's flyweight title, the first ever. No, this would be the second champion, but it felt like the champion, the first flyweight real champion in my opinion, with whoever, the girl that didn't want to fight Valentino. I can't even remember her name. Sorry, it's off the top of my head. I know her. I've talked about her before in the past, but this was going to be a champion of this division. Valentina was just a little too much for Joanna, I think, size-wise. Once you add the fact that I think Valentina edged the striking a bit, once you add the fact that Valentina's as strong as she is, she beat up on Joanna the entire time. I would have liked to see a striking match between those two. I think I'm going to go back and watch their Muay Thai fights because they seemed much closer on the feet. But when Valentina was able to take her down, I felt Valentina was dominating her down on the ground. But we will see in the future where Shevchenko goes from here. I think that she's going to dominate this division for a long time to come, and I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I think it's a popular opinion to think that Shevchenko is not going anywhere for a long time. I would love to see Valentina versus Amanda Nunes again. Valentina is one of those fighters that's in the greatest of all time women's fighter discussion, in my opinion, because she beat Nunes. And I looked down on Nunes going into that Cyborg fight. When that happened, I just looked even higher of Valentina. She's a great fighter. That fight against Nunes is really up for debate on who won. We'll talk about Nunes' great win over Cyborg in this episode. But Shevchenko's got to be in the discussion for greatest woman of all time. And so does Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's done great things with her career. Now, this was just a massive fight. This was a massive fight for a co-main event. And then we had the Max Holloway Ortega. I can't even talk about this fight knowing how great it was. I feel like words can't describe how great this fight was. Teeing off on each other. Ortega took him to war. I don't know why Ortega didn't try and go for the ground a little more. The one time that he really put it on Holloway, I was scared for Holloway. He slid him off his front. I thought Ortega might have sunk in his choke there. But by the end of the fourth round, the cuts on Ortega's face were just too much. The doctor had to stop the fight. I think everybody agrees that the fight was stopped at a perfect time. Maybe you could argue the third rounder could have been stopped in the fourth. But I felt like Holloway, man, his cardio is insane. So was Ortega's. I felt like Ortega was still teeing off. Just the power difference. I think Holloway had the difference over Ortega. And that comes with the fact that Holloway might be better suited for 155 instead of 145, where Ortega's perfect. Ortega's perfect for the featherweight division. So I wouldn't be mad to see Holloway move up and see Ortega take the reins in this division. Same with Moicano. I feel like Moicano is more of a 155 fighter. But this division, Ortega is one of the best. He's scary at featherweight, and if Holloway ever moves up, I think he's going to run this division for a while. So let's move on. That event was amazing. Let's move on to UFC on Fox, Lee versus Iaquinta 2. This one was a surpriser for me. Same old Al came out with a win, again defeating Kevin Lee. This was the second time he beat Kevin Lee and seriously demands the respect that he deserves. Like that Khabib fight where they were all saying Khabib's striking is bad. Clearly it wasn't that bad because he rocked Conor as he did. Al Iaquinta was in the same situation as Conor and went the distance. Conor couldn't. Man, Al is a real deal fighter at 155, and I felt like Lee, his cardio just gave up on him a bit. He put the pressure on him for rounds 1, 2, 3 it started to slow, and then through the 4th and 5th, I felt like Al just started to put it on. He started to rein it, and I think a lot of people saw that too, where the cardio came into play. Good for Al Iaquinta picking up massive win there. Then we have Edson Barbosa KO to the body of Dan Hooker. Man, this was a vicious war too. One-sided war. It could have been it was more one-sided than Holloway Ortega. Edson was brutalizing Hooker everywhere. The head, the body. He went head, body, 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 head, body. Roughed him up. Barbosa's dangerous. He's dangerous. He could have finished Lee. He could very much be in that same position. It could have been Al versus Edson. Edson with that Khabib, if he rocked Khabib with one of his kicks, nobody's staying up for that. Nobody's staying awake for that. It's the end of their night. Edson Barbosa is the most dangerous striker at 155. I think he would be a very, very dangerous striker, even at welterweight. Like, this guy has the most brutal kicks I've seen. Edson Barbosa, don't make him fall off your map. Don't make him fall off your radar. He's coming at 155. Then at bantamweight, Rob Font defeated Sergio Pettis in what I thought was kind of an underdog win for Rob. Sergio, I don't know. It's been up and down for Sergio this year, but it was a big fight for Rob Font no matter what. And then we had Charles Oliveira picking up another submission win over Jim Miller. I think this was his 4th rear naked choke this year. He's great on the ground. He's a submission specialist. His style reminds me much like Damian Maia, but at a much lighter weight. I think that if Oliveira works on more of his takedowns on the ground, he's finishing anybody in that division. So that would wrap up UFC on Fox. Good for Charles Oliveira. He's a veteran and a great submission specialist from Brazil. So let's move on to finalize. This is the last event of 2018, and this is the last event we will cover in the UFC Ultimate Recap 2018 edition. And it's UFC 232, Jones versus Gustafsson 2. And it had a lot of good fights, man. Even on the early preliminary card, we had a fight that I really was interested in. We had middleweight Uriah Hall defeating Bavon Lewis by KO. Somebody made a really wise video on it. I don't know the channel name. It's in the description below. Okay, go check that video out. It was very, very interesting the way he discussed Uriah Hall's mental game in the octagon and the way it kind of flicked in that last round, in the 3rd round of his fight against Bavon Lewis. Hall touched on it. Hall's like, he got me pissed off. He hit me a bunch of times, and I got mad. So I just let it go. Caution to the wind, and I went at him. And that's where Uriah Hall is best. Watch the video in the description, seriously. It was a great video to describe what kind of happened with Uriah Hall coming from the Ultimate Fighter to now, where he gets inside his mind a little too much. A great video. I'm not going to spoil any more of that. Uriah Hall picked up a win. Go take a look at the video in the description. Then we had BJ Penn. He's got to retire, I think. Man, it's been way too long for him. He was defeated by Ryan Hall. Submission, heel hook. It was a great submission by Ryan Hall. Don't get me wrong. The roll into the leg, that was beautiful. But, man, BJ Penn's just getting a little bit too old for this. I think he's had a little bit too much when it comes to MMA, and he's done great things. I don't know why he's trying to spoil anything he's done in the past with this recent outing of fights, with all the finishes he's had. He should just retire. I think he's trying to go out on top. I wouldn't risk any more losses for that, man. BJ Penn, you've had a great career. I would like to see him retired, but it's up to him, 100% on him. He can decide. Next, we had Jan taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade. This was a good fight. Jan is a wrestler. He took him down, beat him up, and then he called out Volkanovski, I think. He called Volkanovski out. Volkanovski is a wrestler. He'd fight later on the card, and he's a great wrestler. So is Peter Yan. It's a good fight, but I think Volkanovski's now a little too high for Yan. I think Jan's going to have to get a couple more fights at bantamweight. Bantamweight is a stacked division. It's a really, really solid division. And then at women's featherweight, we saw a weird outcome. The kick to the eye, the toe went in the eye. That was vicious. I just looked at it and I went, man, this is brutal. That's brutal. I'd wear goggles in my fights if you could. The toe went in the eye. Katzengano couldn't defend herself. I don't know the rules about poking in the eye with feet. I think it's legal because it's your feet. You're not meaning to do that. You're throwing a head kick, for God's sake. You don't know where your toe's going to land. But Megan picked up a big win for herself. Good for her. And then she called out more featherweights. Let's get some more featherweights in the division. I agree 100%. It looks like we only have Cyborg and Megan, and then the rest are just moving up. Then we saw Walt Harris. Disappointing, Walt. You disappointed me. I picked you to win. No, I didn't even pick you to win. That's a weird situation there, weird scenario. But nonetheless, Walt Harris, I don't think he did enough to win this fight. It was close. I thought he won the fight, but, man, he's got to get a couple more rounds in, man. He started to die out. He had no instinct to kill Arlovsky. He had no instinct to try and knock him out when I thought he had the clear power advantage. I was disappointed. I thought Walt was going to be a big thing, but this fight, it shook me up a bit. And now we get to the main card where we had a bunch of good fights. Volkanovski defeats Chad Mendes. I think it was more via cardio than TKO, than punches. I thought Chad was getting tired. Volkanovski lands a good body shot. It was a good wrestler versus wrestler stand-up fight. They were teeing off on each other. Chad had his up moments, and Volkanovski had his up moments. And it ended up being the retiring fight of Chad Mendes. I think I'd rather see fighters retire earlier than late. So I'm proud of Chad Mendes. He did great things in his career. Good for him. Some of the most remarkable fights were his Aldo fights. Good for Mendes. Good career on Mendes. He fought valiantly in that one. Just needed to survive the round, I think, and then the third might have been different. But what can you do? If he thinks it's over for him. Good for him. Chad Mendes, shout out Chad Mendes, and Volkanovski, who's going to be looking at a title shot in the near future. Then we had Corey Anderson making a statement, beating a really, really prominent light heavyweight in Ilir Latifi. I thought Latifi had big things in front of him, but this loss clearly puts a spike in the road. Corey Anderson is looking for a shot at Jones after Anthony Smith gets his shot, and he has good reason to. He's won a lot of fights consecutively. He's been fighting. He's been active. He wants whoever he wants next. He's a real statement. He's made real statements towards that belt this year. Then we had Michael Chiesa defeating Carlos Condit. I thought Condit was easily could have won this fight. I hate Michael Chiesa. I'm just going to move on from this one. Chiesa, he looked good at welterweight. I can't say that he didn't look good. Good for him. Then we have Amanda Nunes defeating Chris Cyborg in what was the surprise moment of the year for me. I didn't give Nunes much of a shot at all in this fight, and the way she just dropped overhands, I thought Cyborg walked into some shots she did not need to walk into, but nonetheless, Nunes has some power in both hands. She's a scary fighter. She's so far, in my mind, the greatest of all time. Good for Amanda Nunes picking up a win at featherweight. She can go up, she can go down. She's a great women's champion. The queen of MMA, probably. I would say so. I would agree. The greatest woman fighter of all time so far. Give Valentina that shot, though, I think. Valentina deserves it to go up and try and become a champ in her own right. But I rest my case. Nunes, you're the greatest of all time so far. We'll see what happens at the end of the road. Then, in the main event, another greatest of all time. We were seeing some of the greatest of all time in this card, and it was John Jones defeating Gustafsson. It was a ground TKO. I thought Jones was playing it slow, relaxing in the fight. I don't think he was ever in danger, ever scared of what Gustafsson was presenting. And then he ended up getting the win. He ended up, once he was on top, once he found the back, then he just started raining the shots. I saw some different type of power than he was showing throughout the fight. And he picked up a massive statement at the end of the year, all following a bunch of controversy. You can't say this card wasn't filled with controversy. The picogram, calling out reporters, becoming a Jesus follower, a Bibleist, and all that kind of stuff. It was crazy. I think Jones has gone through a lot this year. So I'm just relaxing, going to sit back and watch him. I love John Jones, a great fighter. I can't wait to see what goes on in his future. And he's one of the all-time best at what he does. And I'm excited for 2019 to see where he goes. But that'll do it for me today. And that'll do it for this series. We're ending the series on 2 seriously long episodes. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this series. If you want to see more series, let me know in the comments. Anything you guys want to talk about throughout the series or anything from this video, I'm willing to talk as much as you guys want to talk to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching in a day, have a great day. If you're watching at night, have a great night, and peace out, guys.